let me know when you're seeing it.
Yes, we can see it.
Yep. Okay, so we're getting through the technical issues slowly but surely. So thank you everyone for joining us today. It's December 1st. Our wonderful online meetup series is continuing in this virtual space. We're very excited about today because we are going to be covering what happened at KubeCon a couple of weeks ago, and we also have a great talk from folks at Shopify, so we're looking forward to that. So without further ado, I know there are people in our Slack channel who are trying to get connected, and so that is happening slowly but surely. So thank you for your patience, and let's get going. Next slide, please. Excellent. So today, as I mentioned, we're going to go through a few. So the way we decided to do our KubeCon recap is we're going to talk a little bit about what each of us in the organizing committee liked from the event and some of our recommendations. And I know a lot of those talks will be available by the CNCF at some point in the near future. But basically, we're just going to do our regular intro. We're going to talk about some of our general announcements, and then we'll get into the takeaways and then our talk about Voucher. And last but not least, we have some really awesome prizes, actually better than in the past, maybe not better, but more than in the past. So definitely stick around until the end because we have some really great giveaways this year, including a whole license to do online learning. So it's not something that you want to miss. Okay, yay.
Yeah.
So my name is Julia. I work at a company called CloudOps. I'm based in Montreal. I've been around for a while. For those of you who don't know me and are new, hi. For everyone else, hello, hello. So I'm here with our newest member of the organizing team, Mathieu Benoit, works at Google now, and Anthony Dan, who is at Adaptive. So the three of us will be your hosts. I'm going to be talking a little bit at the beginning, and then Mathieu and Anthony will take over for the rest of the journey through this. If anyone has any questions, feel free to comment in the chat, and we'll get to you. If you have any questions, you can ask your questions there. Puis si vous voulez poser des questions en français, sentez-vous à l'aise de communiquer avec nous en français aussi. We also want to give a shout out to the rest of our organizing committee that is so wonderful to work with. So of course, Archie, Souvro, Ray, Alex, Chris, Christopher, Dima, Sebastien, and Jason. So we kind of all take turns hosting these events. We're all located in different cities. So a big shout out to them and to those of folks who contributed to our KubeCon takeaways. Thank you very much. And of course, we would be remiss if we did not mention our wonderful sponsors. So this, of course, we're not going city to city, but the sponsorship still matters. It matters to get a whole bunch of logistical things taken care of. So we really appreciate the contribution of the companies that help us with these meetups and with our other community events, hopefully next summer, the KCDs, the Kubernetes Community Days. We also wanted to give a special shout out to Pluralsight, who is giving us some of the prizes that I mentioned earlier. So some of the licenses around their online learning platform, they've donated to us. So it's worth a significant amount of money, and we want to give them a big shout out for that. And the other thing I wanted to mention is I added a QR code here. If anyone works for an organization who would like to participate in sponsoring our events, this QR code will lead you to a deck of information about how to become a sponsor, what you get if you become a sponsor. The best part is that you get to work with us and you get to support our wonderful and growing community in the Eastern Canadian cities, as well as beyond now in this virtual world. So thank you to those companies who are helping support us. Today, super exciting because I would like to introduce our speakers from Shopify. So Catherine Jones and Nilay Shah. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Yes. Okay, I got a thumbs up. Great. So they're going to be talking about a project they've been working on or built called Voucher. So really excited to have you here. Thank you. Shopify has long been a supporter of our meetups. We have been to many of your offices around the cities that we go to, including Toronto and Ottawa. So we're really grateful for your contribution in this way and doing this talk with us. And as I mentioned, we will have the organizing team, some of us who will kind of jump in on some of our favorite key takeaways from KubeCon. All right.
Perfect. Do you want me to take it from here, Julia, or do you want to do it?
No, go for it, Mathieu.
Yeah, and apologize, Mohamed and Roy and others. Apologize for the size of the screen. I'm not able to find the setting to make it bigger, so apologize for that. I will share the link of this presentation, and you will be able to follow along with the PDF format of that. Housekeeping, thank you, Julia, for all of that. Housekeeping, as usual, you could follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and you could leverage actually the Canadian CNCF and Cloud Native meetups and communities on Slack. It was leveraged during KubeCon. It was great to see about the feedback and sharing experience in French or in English. Great initiative over there. As usual, we are looking for speakers, idea for next session. So if you have any cloud native story you would like to share with the community, please fill out this form and paper call. Tech talk could be in different formats. Reach out in one-to-one in Slack if you have any question. We could help you. But yeah, we are looking about more ideas and presentation for 2021. So thank you for your contribution as always. Quickly, we are not going to take too much time on the CNCF announcement, but we would like to highlight since the last meetup a few weeks and months ago, so some graduation incubation and some new sandbox project. Quick highlight, Cert Manager as a sandbox project now incubation for the cloud native buildpacks. Very interesting project, and the CNCF graduation for each CD. Some recap and maybe stats for the 2020 year. I won't go too much in details here, but if you see, maybe it's too small for seeing the difference. But from last year, we are seeing 3 times of project accepted. So that's an interesting one from last year, and few involvement and improvement actually for sandbox process and other graduating project we went through throughout the different meetups and Arbor, Tigvi, Rook, etc. So let's now have more details about some takeaways from our co-organizer here. And we would like to start with you, Anthony. So thank you for sharing your experience here.
Sure. Merci, Mathieu. Hello, everyone. Hey, I'm gonna start the KubeCon takeaways. We have several presenters today for this part. We wanted, to gather the feedback from the organizing team of the CNCF Eastern Canada. So I'm starting with my takeaways. 2 things. Since I am a software developer primarily, I was mostly interested in the developer experience progress that has been made across the different CNCF projects. Let's start with how can we build Docker images for our software, for our microservices and other software that we want to deploy to Kubernetes. Of course, Dockerfiles have been here for, since the beginning, but there are other options, and an interesting option that was regularly mentioned during KubeCon was the build packs. So the CNCF build packs, they are actually build packs that have a specification. And this specification goes around two main aspects. The first aspect is that a build pack is going to detect what to do to build your image. And then the second step of the second part of a build pack is actually to act upon this detection. So basically, if you have, for example, a package.json, and then you ask for build pack to do something with it, first it's going to detect that it's probably a JavaScript or TypeScript project, and then it's going to download the required images to build it. And the cool thing with BuildPack is that since it's standard, there are many tools that are adopting this standard and then can act upon BuildPack. For example, VMware presented KPack. Then we know from Pivotal, they have many tools around BuildPack. Even for the Java developer, they have a Spring Boot Maven plugin that can understand BuildPacks. So I think that 2020 was super interesting, and KubeCon 2020 kind of highlighted this, that build packs are here to stay. It's a spec, and many tools and organizations are moving and supporting build packs. So I'm pretty sure that it's a safe investment of your time. Then, still about developer experience, deploying to Kubernetes without YAML. We all know and hate or love YAML. Of course, it's an infinite debate whether you like it or not, but it has been basically the main interface to interact with Kubernetes. But of course, Kubernetes is basically the API server. You can definitely use curl if you want to interact with Kubernetes. But of course, if you're a developer, you want some higher level SDKs to interact with Kubernetes. So Fabricate and even the Kubernetes community came up with API for JavaScript, Python, Java, and other languages, and of course Go, to interact with your Kubernetes cluster. And I found it interesting that AWS, through their project CDK, has actually presented and brought up a new support for Kubernetes deployment, that is CDK8S. And with CDK8, you can basically use your favorite programming language and define all your resources, your deployment, your config maps, pods, and so on. And then you can convert this code definition into YAML. So that was pretty interesting to see many developer experiences now to interact with your cluster. Also something to follow, I believe. Then eBPF was all the rage at KubeCon this year. eBPF has been around in Linux for 15 years, I think, or even more than this. But now in Kubernetes, it's taking a whole new dimension. Why? Because it basically allows the users to run user space programs in a kernel context. What does that mean? Basically, it actually means that you can actually snoop many things on the different kernel events that are going to occur. For example, you can actually list the different. So here I have an example with kubectl gadget exec snoop, where you can basically have a look at all the different processes that are running. You can also do things like this for the networking, and you can actually inspect. So it's useful for debugging, monitoring, and many tools are basically using eBPF. The most known, I think, is Cilium, but many others are just joining the fun. And now there are sufficient frameworks and tooling, such as Inspector Gadget, to help you benefit from eBPF. So I think that's also something worth to know. And I think I'm done with my takeaways. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Merci, Anthony. And we have next Chris to talk about his takeaways. And feel free to chat and share your takeaways in the Q&A or general chat section, please. Chris, over to you.
So I got a few things on my list here, so I'll try to go through them pretty quick. Off the top was the big security focus that I saw this year at KubeCon from, I think Falco had 2 or 3 talks. One of them was actually one of the developers walking through how to actually bypass Falco, which was a really cool talk to see, just everything else there. There's also Tabitha Sable did a really good job with the PKI the wrong way. As someone who loves certs, this was another nice way to keep you up at night. And the SIG-HONK panel was great as usual. So if you have a chance to see that keynote, do it. It's a great follow-up from the talk that Ian and at the KubeCon EU. So some of those talks kind of still a little fear and worry about my clusters. It's kind of a nice palate cleanser to all that. Jeff Sika did a fantastic talk about more of the fun parts about the community. This talk, having cloud native fun with HonkCTL, goes through a lot of things that are happening in the community, explains the lovely goose we have up there, where all that came from. You may have seen a lot of honks on Twitter and the Kubernetes Slack. This kind of goes over that. And then another great talk, not super technical, but very entertaining, and it's Justin Garrison's Infrastructure for Entertainment talk. So he kind of goes through how you would do a content distribution, build your own Netflix kind of, and like walks you through all the parts that you need, why you need it, and he does it in a very entertaining, easy to understand way. So again, highly recommend that. And this kind of touches on what Anthony was talking about. The developer experience for Kubernetes has a long way to go. We do a lot of the admin stuff really well, but how does the developer actually build and deploy and get to Kubernetes without necessarily having to learn YAML? So things like build packs really help with that. David Sudia had a really nice keynote on. Sorry, I'm just getting the name of it here. Called More Power, Less Pain, Building Internal Platform with CNCF Tools. So he goes over how they at Go Spot Check use build packs for their day-to-day existence and how they don't really use Docker files anymore. So no handwriting that. So it was a really interesting talk to see how they're approaching or tackling that issue. And then just because normally Apple is so secretive and keeps everything close to the chest, it was really nice to see Apple have a keynote there talking about how they're using Kubernetes to replace their Mesos backend and all the things that they're coming up, challenges that they're coming into, and particularly around schedule, the unique workloads in the scheduler, and what different tools that they're using to make their cloud native journey. So really excited to see what kind of changes or contributions they're going to be making to the Kubernetes ecosystem over the next little while. So that's me.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for sharing that. On my hand, it was actually my first KubeCon. I have not, and I didn't attend any KubeCon before this one. So that was an opportunity for me to be live. Remote. We all know that being in person in conference, it's another story, another feeling, another experience. So unfortunately, it was remote. So I very appreciated my experience over there, trying to deal with my day-to-day job and attend and be focused on the session mostly. And three takeaways for me, I was focused on security overall. So the first announcement was the CKS, the certification focused on Kubernetes security. It's officially out. So coming from cluster and system hardening, how you could minimize vulnerabilities for your apps, your containers, your microservices, end-to-end supply chain security, very accurate with the talk we are going to have later today. With the Shopify folks, et cetera, as well as how to deal with logging, monitoring, and threat detection. So very excited about that. The Cloud Native Security White Paper on that regard, which is going to provide guidance around the different aspects, because security is from day zero and at all the different stacks levels of your solution on top of Kubernetes and around Kubernetes, actually. My first experience at KubeCon on day one, actually, the co-located pre-days event was the security days. And actually, I did the CTF, first CTF ever as well for me. So capture the flag. I really enjoy being an attacker from within a container on top of a Kubernetes cluster and trying to attack and grab some flags. So I don't know if a few of you, in the attendees did that, but for me, it was a great learning experience. The organizer was awesome. helping out in Slack. I ask a lot of tips, but that's okay. I learned and I went out of my comfort zone, but it was an hands-on experience for me. So I wrote recently a blog article around my experience over there. The link is on the deck. So that's pretty much it for me. And we have our next takeaways from Alex. Alex, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Mathieu. My takeaways, very shortly, I was really impressed by the progress that OpenTelemetry did in the last year or so. We had a very nice keynote from Constance, one of the two key chairs for this event. And I personally have been playing with OpenTelemetry 3 for a few months, and it really is an awesome tool to just consolidate the observability space and give you, the developers and the platform owners, all of the tooling that you need to be vendor agnostic, vendor neutral when you're picking your observability solutions, and evaluate different vendors, migrate from one another. You don't have to re-implement observability, tracing, metrics, and logs forever and ever, depending on which partner you're going with. So it gives you a lot of flexibility and a way forward to integrate all of your platform observability needs. We mentioned this already. Security is a day zero concern. I won't go too much in details. I think we've had a pretty good recap already. But I think, especially on the developer experience, the platform needs more maturity. It did display a little bit more already with use cases for people that built their own platform, like Dev Studio, or the argument of buying your own platform. It's a trade-off, but as platforms are getting there and more mature and standardizing, it seems to be that there are more choices on the market. And it ties in very nicely with the safety message that was really in the background of the conference. I felt like safety everywhere on your self-service platform, where speed is required, speed is expected of your developers to ship code and iterate quickly, but you need to do it safely. You need observability. You need best practices in place in order to make sure that you are not busting your service level agreements. So with that, I'll let that to the next.
Thank you very much, Alex.
Next set of takeaways.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. And we are going to have Archie's point of view and takeaways. Archie,
hello.
Over to you.
My name is Archie. I'm your KubeCon Cloud Native Ambassador. So the 7th KubeCon, really like this event. Try to attend every time. And one of the shameless plugs, if you become organizer of our meetups, you can get a free ticket to KubeCon. So that's another reason to become organizer of our events. Obviously, there's a lot of tracks, a lot of talks that you can catch up soon in YouTube. That will be available soon. The link is not available, but usually for me, KubeCon is time to work, trying to meet community, trying to talk to sponsors, trying to find what is actually interesting. And for me, every time I'm trying to find what is the main theme of the KubeCon. And I actually want to ask you this question here, if you can put one theme that you saw that is going through the KubeCon. But in my opinion, this KubeCon was a lot about Kubernetes on the edge. And edge in general, there was a lot of conversation, like, for example, Envoy Mobile, that you can run Envoy today on the mobile Android devices. I think chaos testing is still a very popular topic. There was a lot of discussions and presentations. And as many mentioned already today, eBPF, Cilium, this is a technology that I think is going to power future Kubernetes networks in all cloud providers, I hope at least, already at Google Cloud. And finally, I think Service Mesh was not as much popular at this event as usual, but I think there was a lot of conversation in terms of like unifying and, because we have many meshes, how we can actually, use all of this. So there was, a lot of conversation around that space. But if you have your opinion, please share with us. We would like to know, like, what do you think was this KubeCon about? I would love to learn about it. Matthew, can you go to the next slide, which is pretty much the same slide, but just click next. Yeah, and usually, the KubeCon North America is the time to finalize the work of all the community. And we have a very good tradition where we had awards for top contributors, top ambassadors. So this year, Ian Coldwater, I think she really deserved her first place. And, she's been voted as a top ambassador. She's probably spoke at every single conference this year and attended every single event. And she's doing an amazing job in the security space. So I'm very happy for Ian, my co-ambassador. And then Ben Elder became top committer to Kubernetes and to CNCF. And we also have prize for chopping the wood and carry water. Probably know George Berkus from Red Hat, who is helping our meetups, Matt Fisher, the contributor to Helm, and many others. So congrats, and thanks everybody who is contributing to Kubernetes and CNCF. I think it's important, and it's great that CNCF also recognizes top contributors and top people who is working with community. The next. Another thing that happened at KubeCon, there was released yet another CNCF radar. And this time I actually went and talked to the creators of CNCF radar, and I asked, can we add Canadian companies to be part of this survey? So today at the end of the event, we'll ask if you're interested to be, to participate in this radar and provide your feedback of what cloud native technologies you're using. So this CNCF radar in November that was announced at KubeCon, it was around storage and database storages. And pretty much, I think, I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but we're going to share the slides and the link. The companies that are, pretty much using and adopted the technologies like MySQL, Kafka, Elasticsearch, Redis. This is something I think we all agree with, but there are interesting other discoveries that you can find and read at the CNCF radar. Next one. And I think finally, one of the reason, the reason I'm actually like to go to KubeCon is usually the parties and meeting with people. I rarely go to the talks. So obviously this KubeCon was not my favorite KubeCon, but I think it was the best out of the all virtual events. And the organizers did a great job trying to make this KubeCon interactive by putting up Twitch Cloud Native FDN channel, so you can actually watch everything what happened, maybe see your friends. We didn't have like official closing parties, but we had a few virtual events, AMAs, and where people basically were connecting to the Zoom. And we were able to go into the separate rooms and talk to each other. And I met actually a lot of people. It was a very weird feeling, but I was still excited to meet a few dozens of contributors and people who are working in CNCF or end users and build some good relationships and connections. So I think it was a good job from the organizers overall. And you can obviously still catch up and find all of this, what happened through the Twitch Cloud Native FDN. So that's kind of a ramp up on my side. And, I'm going to pass to the next speaker. Thanks, everybody.
Julia, you're next.
Yay. So unsurprisingly, mine are not on the technology front. There was one wonderful talk on mental health, and this is just what I wanted to highlight because I think it's an important topic regardless, and I'm starting to work. My new role at CloudOps is around this stuff. And also it's important because we're in this crazy time. And I just wanted to highlight what was said at this talk. So there are a few things to consider to make sure that we're all, staying mentally healthy, especially as we get into winter. So sleep Sleep isn't it's just not just one of those things, but it actually, your brain and your body are actually doing work to recover. So it's a really important function that the human body does and needs. Stretch. So when we stretch and when we get movement going, we actually circulate the blood in our bodies, and it actually goes to our brains, which allow us to work properly and function better in other ways. So that's an important piece of the puzzle. Breaks, so paying attention to other things, so not always staring at a screen and not always being involved in what our work life is, but also putting our attention to other, maybe other more important things sometimes. And make sure that we're scheduling breaks and creating reminders for ourselves to actually do them. So I know this is hard because our work days can easily fuse into our home time, but it is important to kind of stop working and to make sure that we take those breaks. And breathing, of course, super, super important. Obviously something we take for granted because we do it all the time without thinking about it. But if you can just take a short pause and actually focus on your breath and listen to it and be one with it, it's definitely a beneficial practice. So I welcome you all to try that. Lastly, take time off. Now is a good time to start thinking about that and planning that. And I know a lot of folks haven't used their vacation for 2020, so now would be a good time to do that. And if ever things do get difficult, remember you're not alone. And if ever anyone needs to reach out to someone, lots of us are in Slack. Sometimes it's just nice to know that someone is there. So those were my takeaways that I wanted to share with y'all.
Super important. Thank you, Julia, for sharing this, especially during COVID situation, right? So yeah, very, very important. A lot of talks actually are going to happen in such conference and event. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And thank you everyone for sharing your takeaways. Are we missing? Oh yeah, Suvro, sorry about that. Suvro, over to you to share your takeaways, please.
I'm just trying to see if Suvro is actually online. I haven't seen him. So we may just have to go through this for him. So yeah, I can maybe just take the first point. So for those of you who don't know, Dan Kahn, who was at the head of the CNCF for many years, passed away recently. And his life was cut far too short. He has 2 small kids. And so that was something that I thought was really nice that Suvro brought up, that he was being honored for all the work that he's done for the CNCF and the open source community at large. So yeah, we should all send his family a little thought and blessing. Mathieu, maybe you want to do the rest?
Yeah, sorry. So we mentioned as well for the CKS, and yeah, maybe we all experienced live some video glitches, right, about the platform used, but hopefully we were able to take some on-demand video live on the platform, but we are going to have some YouTube links very soon in December. So yeah, different experience, COVID-19 situation again. So yeah, maybe we could go to the next section. And actually, we are very, very excited to have Catherine and Nilay today with us and sharing with you how you could add more security in the supply chain of your Kubernetes ecosystem and journey. So this slide is quite busy, and I'm pretty much sure you are not able to read the words, but that's not the goal. I shared the link of the PDF of this presentation. I will just go through a quickly 1-minute introduction to kick off the session from Nilay and Catherine. Actually, they are going to talk about their story with an open source project, Voucher, based on 2 projects open sourced by Google a few years ago. In 2017, we are talking about Grapheas and Kritis, and all the way down back and pre 2010, where Google were exploring how to add more security with their Borg system. Borg is what landed to Kubernetes open source in 2014. So Borg is the entire platform to manage containers and actually a lot of other services, end user services, as well as VM, virtual machine on Google Cloud Platform. And they were looking for a way to secure the supply chain, how to sign a container before going to a deployment and running on the platform. So that's all the story. So we are really, really excited to have you, Shopify, and Catherine and Nilay on that. So I will stop sharing my screen soon, and you will take it over, Catherine and Nilay. Anthony, you would like maybe to add something?
Yes, Mathieu. Everybody, just have a look in the chat. I share the link to the poll. So it's a quick poll to help us understand better the need of our community. And once you have entered this poll, at the end of a presentation from Catherine and Nilay, we will actually draw prizes. We've got some swag today to offer. So we've got some masks, hats, and whatnot. So I think we have 5 prizes. So please enter the poll and answer the question, and then we will get your name, and we will have a roulette that will be run just after the talk. So thank you for filling in the poll. See you after the presentation.
Yeah, thank you for your feedback. I just stopped sharing my screen, Catherine or Nilay. I don't know who is going to share his or her screen.
It's going to be me, but I have to figure out. I'm not used to using 2 monitors. Normally, I only have the one out. So
Sure. Take your time.
I think, okay, so hi, I'm Catherine. FYI, I'm expecting MacBook to be delivered today, so I may have to run away like midway through this. I really hope that doesn't happen, but yeah. Can everyone hear me okay?
And we are seeing your presentation as well.
Wonderful. All right, so we'll get started then. So welcome to our talk. It's about securing Kubernetes at scale with Voucher. I'm Catherine.
And I'm Nilay.
And we work on the software supply chain security team at Shopify. Oh, I should probably make this full screen. Oh, it was already full screen. Womp womp. Okay, so quickly, here's our agenda. We're going to do an intro to BIN-auth, binary authorization, and code signing. We're going to have some time for questions. And if we're lucky, we're going to have a demo. I've been fighting Kubernetes all night, and it was part of this morning. So no promises on the demo, but we'll do our best. If you prefer to read, there's a link to our blog post, which was posted on the Shopify blog today, the engineering blog, and that is also in the slides that are in the Kate's channel, Kate's Meetup channel. So coming into this, you're probably wondering, what is binary authorization? Because if you're not doing this specific brand of security with Kubernetes, you probably haven't heard of it before. Binary authorization's code signing for Kubernetes. And now you might be wondering, what's code signing? If you already know, it's okay. We'll be very quick about this. So code signing is the process of creating a verifiable signature of a code archive or application with a cryptographic key. So what does that get us? Code signing allows you to set up systems to block applications that haven't been signed by a trusted key. So for example, you might want to be able to run software made by Nilay and me, but you might not want to run someone's Bitcoin miner that puts the mined Bitcoins into a wallet you'll never see. Code signing also prevents modification. So because it has a hash of the code or application inside of the signature, this means that if someone comes in, takes your legitimate application, say Photoshop, starts putting in malicious code, because the contents of it's changed, the hash is different, and then the signature no longer applies to it. So that software would be blocked. And then finally, the big thing that it gets you is it prevents impersonation. I can claim to have built Photoshop, but I won't be able to sign the application as the Photoshop team, since the keys are usually only used by either or a team. So you can use it to verify the creator of the software you're using. So who uses it? You do. Every desktop operating system uses code signing. So like if you download Firefox from the internet on Mac OS and something's wrong with it, you're gonna get this message, and your only options are stop doing what you're doing or put that in the trash. Every single Linux package manager, well, maybe not every single, most Linux package managers have code signing built in. Debian's, Ubuntu's, which is Debian's, Alpine, Arch, and so on, so that you can ensure that you're getting software from the distribution team, the maintainers of the packages that you're getting, or from teams that you trust. And then operating system updates also use this to like ensure that when you're downloading the latest copy of your operating system, you're getting something that's from them and not something that's been modified to do extra stuff or to do malicious stuff. So, but what about Kubernetes?
Yeah. So Kubernetes doesn't really provide image signature verification by default. We can actually verify that the application inside the containers are signed, but the whole image itself, we can actually verify that it's signed. If a container comes from the Docker registry, anyone could have really written it. Do you trust Catherine? I mean, you may now because she's given a talk, but you shouldn't later. Are you reviewing your Docker files before you use them? In this example, you'll see that this is actually downloading code from GitHub. Do you know how old this image use as well is? Now you're probably thinking, I don't have time to worry about this, but that's okay, because that's where binary authorization comes in. Binary authorization is made up of three main projects: Grafeus, Kubernetes, and Voucher. Here's a quick high-level overview of part of the binary authorization system. Don't worry about trying to understand this. We're going to learn about the first three projects that I mentioned before, and then see how they interact with the system. The first part is Grafeus. Grafeus is a storage system for image metadata. Grafeus stores metadata about an image's build pipeline and where the source code comes from. It can also store image vulnerability information so you can see if an image is compromised. Finally, Grafeus stores all these image signatures. The next piece is Voucher. Voucher is an automated container signing system. Voucher will receive the URLs of images in your container registry. It will then create signatures for the images, which are then written to Grafeus. And the last piece of the puzzle is Kubernetes. Kubernetes is a signature verification service. Kubernetes is actually a mutating admission controller. So what this means is that it receives Kubernetes API calls to create or modify resources. It will then check Grafeus for signatures for all of the images in the resources. Finally, it will block containers from running any unsigned images. So let's go back to the high-level overview here and walk through it now that we understand what the three missing pieces are. So the first step you would do is you would push your code to your Git repository. Next, your CI pipeline pushes the image to your image builder. Your image builder then pushes the image to the image registry, and it then pushes the path of the image in the registry to Voucher. Voucher will then create signatures that are pushed to Grafeus. And finally, this is not shown in the image, whenever you want to deploy, Kubernetes will actually be the thing that will check for signatures in Grafeus and then block the images as required.
Lost my mouse cursor. But wait, there's more. Oh, and I lost my focus. So in addition to letting you sign applications using the conventional code signing model. Voucher also lets you cryptographically prove that you're meeting your security requirements. For example, do you have clusters where running as root would be super dangerous? Voucher has a check which will verify if a Docker image runs as root, and then create a distinct signature specifically to say this image does not run as root. Clusters that require this can use this in addition to the regular signature to ensure that only images that don't run as root run. We also have a check which allows you to call out to GitHub, look up approvals for a PR, and then create a distinct signature if you have the required number of approvals for a PR. This is useful for compliance environments where you might have to say, oh yeah, I've had the right number of people sign off on this. It's okay that I'm deploying this. So we're gonna wrap this up here. So the big thing about binary authorization is it lets you stop randos from running their stuff in your clusters, which is very important. And it lets you layer your security checks or layer your security on your Kubernetes clusters, depending on how important they are and what the requirements are. So any questions? Oh, actually, before we go into questions, there is a typo. It is a validating, Credes is a validating admission controller, not a mutating admission controller. We have a different validating or a different mutating admission controller at Shopify, which is linked to this, but we're not talking about here. So yeah, any questions?
We have a question in the chat about where can I find documentation about Voucher?
So if you go to the Grapheus repo, Nilay, could you link it in the chat?
Yeah, I'm just getting the link right now.
I'm gonna close this tab and then share my screen to see if I can do a demo, because that would be cool. It would be cool to have a demo.
Yeah, while Cap's setting it up, I can totally take some more questions if anyone has any.
Yeah, there's another question in the Q&A. What business problem initially led Shopify to focus development on binary auth and Voucher?
Yeah, I think one of the first ones was probably with our compliance environments. So that's where like the 2 GitHub checks come in, and a lot of other things like ensuring that they are from a good container, which are GCR that we know and control. So yeah, that's where it started, and then it sort of spiraled in us thinking like, oh hey, this will probably be a good thing to have like elsewhere of the rest of our platform. So now we have already rolled it out pretty much everywhere else.
Okay, awesome. We have a comment that just says great idea for the PR approvers part, and another question from Brad. Does Kubernetes control all containers or only containers with specific labels? For example, do we have to whitelist containers that we didn't develop?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if you're using binary authorization on GKE, there's a way to essentially have a policy, and a policy is what essentially dictates how you want to enforce it, because you can obviously also run binary authorization in dry run mode in case you don't want to just outright block everything. So what we usually do is when we have containers that we know aren't our own, what we do is we have 2 options. We either mirror them using our own GCR and rebuild them, or what the other option is, you can essentially add them to this whitelist in the policy itself. So that means that you can block clusters. And there's also a new feature for binary authorization where you can block or you can whitelist all images based on a namespace. So that's also convenient and handy if you want to have just like, say, one namespace where you know you're not having binary authorization, you can just throw everything in there.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And one other question, 2 other questions. How would this be applied in an environment that consumes upstream containers rather than building/developing our own images?
So in that scenario, I think it would just be whenever those images are consumed from upstream, you'd have to have something essentially automatically signing, like running Voucher essentially programmatically whenever you get the input of these images. And then once they're signed, then you'd kind of only allow it to run in the clusters you're running on. That's at a high level, kind of without knowing too much, that's kind of how I think about setting that up.
And does Voucher check for already developed images? Like image could be fine 3 months ago, but now could be a liability.
Yeah, so unfortunately not, right? Because what Voucher does is it actually writes all this metadata to Grafeus, and that's where it actually stores the signature. So Kubernetes will block it unless the signatures are in Grafeus. So you can technically like do a backfill in this scenario where you do point all older images and make Voucher verify them all. Therefore, you can kind of get all these signatures in Grafeus, and Kubernetes will then do the right thing, which is block it if it isn't signed and it doesn't meet your security requirements.
Okay, and I think the last one we have for now is, hopefully I'm going to get this right because I see some crazy numbers in here. Any image and layer in the image already has a Shah 256, SHA 256 value. Doesn't it boil down to managing security metadata about each layer / image? Why do we need to create another set of cryptographic signatures?
So I think what you're describing is, you can go ahead, Kat.
Yeah. So the big argument for doing it at the manifest level, so like the place that signatures get created are like specifically on the Docker manifest as opposed to the individual layers, is that you have like a complete state of the whole image, including who it runs as, all of the layers, the actual image config. Unless I'm misremembering, layers only contain the once they're pushed up to the registry, the layers are only blobs containing like the file system changes. Like the final image is the only part that has a config. So if you're, let's say you build a perfectly reasonable image that doesn't run as root until the last layer gets modified and someone's like, actually, I do want it to run as root. Then you're like, you've got this image which was otherwise properly set up, but now you have a potential security flaw that like could be exploited down the line. And when using binary authorization, it means then you can then block those images with the specific attestation. I think like long term, you want to be aware of what's going on in the layers. So the container analysis API that we're using checks each individual layer for vulnerable packages being installed. So we have some information about that. This is another way to skip worrying about the layers, because we can say, okay, we've looked at this current state of the image at the time that we've built it. We trust it right now, and we're going to let that image run. And then if down the line we decide that the image is no longer secured, we can delete the signatures for it. Ideally, at some point, we're going to be able to have signatures automatically expire so that you have to reattest images. But Voucher currently doesn't support that, as Nilay said. That's a feature we want to work on. If anybody is interested in contributing, we'd love to get some help on that. So does that answer the question? I don't have this chat open. I don't know where my cursor is. There it is.
So if do you guys maybe just want to paste in a link, or maybe just if people should notify you in Slack if they want to get involved? Is that the best way to do that?
Yeah, if you actually, if you DM me on Slack, I just joined the Slack channel or the Slack organization, but also like the other best way to get involved is to just take a look at the Voucher repo and the Grafeus project in GitHub, and just like, yeah, as Nilay said, like, just like take a look at what's there. We're super open to like taking a look at any new features. Got a lot of stuff that I'm not happy with that we could be fixing. But yeah. How much time do we have? Oh, it is 1 o'clock. Do we have time for a demo or?
Yeah, so we technically go until 1:30. So it's if you guys have time on your end, then go for it.
So I have time. I don't know if you have time, Nilay.
No, I'm good. I was also going to say if it's like hard to tell if like we answered the questions. So if we didn't, feel free to just like either message in the chat or whatever, and we'll definitely like answer them as we go.
Thank you for that. So far, I don't see any other questions. So I guess Roy, Brad, if anyone else has a question, I know Anthony, you asked a question too. So if your question wasn't answered, feel free to ask a clarifying question.
Cool. Kat, I think you might need to make your font a bit bigger.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
So at this stage, just to give some context on what's going on, I have Voucher set up in a brand new cluster. We have the binary authorization feature turned on. I can show you a image getting blocked. So let's look at the pods that are running. Oops. Currently, we only have 1 pod. So let's start a new deployment with an image that is to latest. Oh, probably need to give it a name. Great, and we look at our pods. Oh, as you can see, the pod doesn't exist. If you look at the deployments, we see that test Ubuntu has 0 ready out of the 1 requested. Going into it. Oh, wrong keyword. So I feel like there logs for this go someplace else for our internal system. So oh, I can just look at the replica set. So as you can see, well, you can't see when I highlight it, the image that we're trying to use for Ubuntu latest has been blocked by the attester. We only have 1 attester set up right now, which is just the default basic attester DIY, which means I made this myself. So what's happening here is because the image is specified by a tag as opposed to a digest, essentially the Credes, the part of Credes that's built into GKE gets the image. It says, okay, latest could literally point to any Docker image. Like you could build an Alpine image, push it up and call it latest. So it has no idea what is actually supposed to be running here. So let's get another, make a new window. Oh. We'll get a different image. So in this case, we're gonna get it based on its digest, because the digest is based on a hash of the image manifest. So we know what we're getting, whereas we don't know with just a tag. So we'll edit the deployment. Oh, it's test Ubuntu. Image. And boom. So this says get the image whose hash matches this. It has the tag latest. So It is essentially the same image, but now we can actually get the image that we want. So, and let's make sure pod isn't running. Oh, it would help if I could spell. And oh, I think the replica set changed. So now that we're using the, oh, that's actually Voucher. Whoops. Now that we're using the correct image, we should see that there are no valid attestations associated with this image. And we are seeing that here. So that's good and correct. So the next thing is we want to actually sign the image with Voucher, which if I'm lucky, I can get working. I was hoping to do this with all of the open source pieces, but oops, no, I don't. Services. But then I ran into a couple of issues. Voucher.service. Oh no, it's SVC. Default SVC 3000. Username is.
So just to narrate a bit, what Kat's doing right now is she's kind of editing the actual config for running Voucher, as you see that she has when she did get services in the cluster. So once she has that up and running, she can enable and like put in the config map settings using a TOML file for all the checks and whatnot, which we just saw. And then once we have that running, we can manually call Voucher to attest the image and then see if it works.
All right. So let's try. Right. And let's use what was our image that was failing earlier? I'm sorry, this is I was hoping this would be have a lot more going on, but I need an image that actually lives in our how much time do we have?
I think we could do 5 minutes more. After that, we have to wrap up the session.
Sure. All right, let's see if I can get this done within the next 5 minutes. Oh, so we'll go to gcr.io. Archie, is it okay to go to the address of the project for this that the Kubernetes cluster is running in? Is it a secret or not? Is essentially what I'm wondering.
Sorry, is this question to who?
To you.
Oh yeah, no secrets. You can go ahead and it's
okay. Cool.
This is we're just providing the environment for the demo, so the project will be deleted after the event, so it should be fine.
Oh, am I not logged in? Hang on.
No, you need to select the project maybe.
Oh. Boop. All right, so I have already uploaded this image. We're going to see if we can use Voucher to check it. Oh, and it would help if we actually had built Voucher or a Voucher client.
demos. What can go wrong?
Everything. Okay, cool. We know Voucher is running. I'm going to just leave it running so that, oops. Oh, added a, all right. Yes, exactly. So oh, we don't have curl. All right, that looks right. So this is where it's revealed that I have no idea what I'm doing when I use curl. Actually, we have this in the documentation. So oops.
Hey everyone, just a quick reminder, please fill in the form. We're going to draw the prizes super soon.
Great. If this doesn't work, then I think I'm going to call it. So, oops, what have I done? We're going to do. So the URL is voucher default. Almost there. Does anybody quickly know how to pass in a username with PitCurl? Oh, if I do.
Should be -u and then username : password.
All right, I'm going to use my super secure.
Yeah.
There we go.
Cool.
Oh, and that's where we find out that I did not give the service account permission to do things. So, womp womp. If this worked, the result we would see here that the image was signed correctly. Unfortunately, we can't get the metadata because we don't have permission. We also can't get the image itself. We can't connect to the KMS keys, because we don't have permission. So, yeah. So I think I'm going to stop demoing now. But that is a quick example of voucher working.
If you will have like a link maybe in the future for for the working demo, we'll be happy to share with the community. I know it was very tough time for Shopify because you guys doing the Black Friday and all these events, so we understand you're all very busy, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nilay. We have an echo. I don't know who is doing the echo, but thank you, Nilay and Catherine, for that. And in the audience, we have 60 people still on the call. Feel free to chat and ask questions, share your takeaways from this session or as well as KubeCon. In the meantime, Anthony is grabbing all the name for the price.
Yes, there are still some answers coming in. We have 38 people who actually filled in the form. So thank you very much. Just waiting 1 minute before I get the name, and then I input them to the Wheel of Fortune. So we have 5 goodies today to give away. So let me get this. We have 2 masks, 2 CNCF masks, kind of useful in those times. 1 scarf could be useful as well. It's getting cold. 1 hat, and also 1 Pluralsight license to give away. So get ready. Yeah, 40 answers now. And let me do the countdown. I'm going to do a countdown to stop it.
I don't know if there's still questions for Catherine, just to, while Anthony's preparing. And
yes, that's the right slide. And I'm getting the name in as a nice CSV.
Do you want to share your screen, Anthony, or?
In a minute. In a tiny minute.
Perfect.
Yes. I want to share my screen now. I'm ready, Mathieu.
Okay, stop sharing. While you are doing that, thank you all for your feedback and the active discussion on the chat. Very much appreciated. We got great feedback for the next session in the survey. Apologize for the tiny screen.